All retro style games. Sure, some people might see them as lazy, and it's definitely an oversaturated market, but I just can't bring myself to stop loving them. In my opinion, pixel graphic games, whether they go for a strictly retro look or adopt a more modern aesthetic, more often than not look much better than 2.5D games or games that try to go for a non-pixelated 2D style. Of course, there are still some great looking games that use both of these styles, but there's just something about good old-fashioned sprite art. But all of these games are 2D. You know what never gets much love? Early 3D games. Early 3D games on the N64, original PlayStation, and Sega Saturn all have very distinct looks, but I can't recall ever seeing these styles pop up in more modern releases, which is a shame, as this is the era of gaming I grew up on. That's why A Short Hike immediately piqued my interest when I saw it mentioned briefly in a video. Wow, a game that throws back to 3D games on the PS1? What a neat idea. I checked it out on Steam and the reviews were overwhelmingly positive. I wasn't really looking for anything to play at the time, but I made sure to add it to my wish list, confident I could revisit it later. Well, it's a good thing I didn't decide to pick it up then, because not 2 weeks later it popped up for free on the Epic Games Store. Well, I don't know what that is if not a sign, so I guess it's about time I take a short hike. In A Short Hike, you play as Claire, a bird who is expecting a very important phone call. Unfortunately, she has no cell reception, and if she wants any, she's going to have to climb all the way to the top of Hawk Peak. The problem started as soon as I booted up the game. So, of course, one of the main draws of this game is the retro art style, but that's not exactly what this is. You see, I didn't always have a good PC. I used to have to run all of my games at the lowest possible graphics settings just to get by, and that's why I could immediately recognize that this is just a regular 3D game being run at an extremely low resolution. Sure enough, if you dig deep enough in the settings, you can find the filter and turn it off, running the game in glorious 1080p. After reading about a bazillion messages from the creator about how the game is intended to be run at the lower resolution. This might not bother some people. I've never heard anyone else mention it, so it's entirely possible that 99.9% of people would have never even noticed, but once I saw it, I couldn't unsee it. I still decided to respect the developer's wishes and run the game at the default resolution, but it bothered me the whole time. Once I finished my first playthrough, I decided to take off the filter during the side quests, and wouldn't you know, this game's art direction is still beautifully stylized. To me, it looks like a cross between The Witness and The Wind Waker, and I absolutely love it. It's just a shame that the thing this game is most known for turned out to be the thing that bothered me about it the most. So what about the gameplay? Well, so beyond just climbing the mountain, your other main task is to collect golden feathers. These basically act as your stamina meter, determining how many times you can jump, how long you can climb or run, all things you need to be able to do to scale the mountain. You can buy 2 feathers pretty much straight off the bat, and from there you get the rest by completing side quests or just finding them sitting around. They really aren't very hard to find. Me being the completionist I am, I decided to do some exploring and piece together 10 feathers before I even attempted taking on the mountain. Now, I had been told that this game was short. I mean, it's in the name. How Long to Beat says it takes about an hour to finish. I figured I had a decent head start on golden feathers, so I was expecting the actual climb to take 30 minutes. I don't know. Well, as it turns out, golden feather collecting is basically the game, with the actual hike taking less than 10 minutes. In fact, if you know where you're going, which isn't exactly a big accomplishment since it's pretty much a straight line, it can easily be done in under 5 minutes. Once you get to the top of the mountain, you get an extremely brief piece of story, and then it's just over. This game seems to revel in pointlessness, refusing to offer any external incentive to do anything, insisting that everything should be done because you want to. But honestly, I never felt very compelled to do much of anything. Most of the NPCs react pretty much like a normal person, meaning not really interested in starting up a conversation. Most of the side quests give you either no reward or a completely useless reward. You only need about 5 feathers to make it to the top of the mountain, so there really isn't a reason to collect any more. I mean, even the ending of the game, the actual end credits and the end achievement are completely optional, even after you've finished the game. That isn't to say that there isn't anything fun to do. Honestly, completing the achievements was more enjoyable than the actual main game for me. I really liked the parkour races and the volleyball minigame, and the fishing minigame was alright. I really appreciate this game for including achievements built into the game itself. Faerun is another game that does this, and it goes a long way on platforms like the Nintendo Switch or the Epic Game Store that don't have achievements built in. Getting all of the feathers for the Feather Finder achievement was pretty annoying, though. The island is surprisingly tough to navigate as you play with a fixed camera that doesn't really let you get a great look at your surroundings. There's no in-game map, and the island is much bigger than you might initially expect. All of this comes together to make getting around much harder than it needs to be, and made me feel pretty claustrophobic, which is odd considering the general vibe this game is clearly going for. I spent a ridiculously long time during my playthrough just trying to get back to places I had already previously been, and despite putting several hours into the game, I only ever developed a very rudimentary understanding of where different locations were relative to each other. My main method for finding a place was just to run around the island and jump off stuff, hoping to stumble upon whatever I was looking for. I feel like this game could have really used some kind of map. The game is just way too short and the island is just way too big to not warrant one. This game is hard for me to talk about. The whole thing was developed by only one person, which is extremely admirable, and beyond that, everybody loves it. I mean everybody. I specifically looked for people bad-mouthing it online, and I couldn't find anybody. Out of almost 3,000 Steam reviews, less than 25 are negative. So I hate to be the one to say this isn't for me, but this game really just isn't for me. In a world where games are constantly bombarding you with objectives and achievements, constantly asking of you, a short hike asks you to do nothing. But the thing is, I like objectives and achievements. I like being given a task and then getting it done. To me, that's kind of the whole point of games. This game seems to exist to break the norms, to be different, but I like the norms, and while you can do your best to force a short hike to be played like any other game, you probably won't have much fun with it. So, if you're like me, I can't really recommend it, but hey, clearly I am in the 1% of 1%ers here, so you know what, even though this video seems to be almost completely negative in tone, I really think you should give it a look. I don't hate a short hike, but doing nothing just isn't my thing. Well, this was an interesting video. Hopefully you thought so. I constantly talk about how all these outros are the same, but I actually have something different for you today. I've been playing a lot of Fortnite with my friend Cooper over on his channel, so I'll link that down below if you feel like checking it out. And while you're down there, you might as well leave a like, subscribe, and follow me on social media. I mean, you know, you're already down there, so I guess that's about all I have for you. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.